I just read through Alex Hormozi's 100 million money models. All he talks about is how you can make more money out of one transaction. This is very damaging advice for many coaches, consultants, course creators.
She was doing somewhere between 7 and 10K when she became my client. And at the end of just shy of 11 months was doing $1 million a month.
In less than 12 months, a business went from 10K a month to over $1 million a month.
Welcome to Scale Simple. I'm Sebastian, and I'm here with Jeff. Here we talk about scaling your coaching business to 7 or 8 figures while actually keeping the profit. Because here's the thing, most companies sacrifice 70 to 80% of their revenue to bloated ad spend, big teams, or tools they don't need. So we show you how to keep most of your money using hybrid social funnels where organic content and paid ads work together, not against your profit. That's what we talk about here. We share all the specific strategies and what's working right now that you can implement into your business.
Jeff, I know you had your own company in the past. It was an SEO agency, correct?
Correct, yeah.
I know you scaled this company and then you sold this company. So walk me through the process. How did you build this company and to the point that how did it happen and why did you end up selling it?
I scaled it with a friend. We essentially scaled it just by doing what we did for our clients. We knew that there was a market for SEO. We focused predominantly on letting agents, real estate. We essentially scaled the company. We recognized we used Google's keyword tracker and stuff like that. We noticed that there was a lot of local opportunity with regards for people looking for SEO. So we ranked a site for local search terms, SEO company, UK, SEO company, Southwest, all this kind of stuff. And then we started to get some inquiries. We did phone calls with those inquiries. We got some clients and then we helped scale their websites using the same methodology that we scaled our own. It was a pretty quick turnaround from inception to a few good handfuls of clients who we were working with on different price retainers, depending on the size of business and stuff like that. But that was essentially how we did it. We utilized PBNs, private blog networks, which, as I understand, still work. But back in the day, they could be built the right way or the wrong way. We built what we thought was the right way. Turned out not quite to be the case, but for a long time it worked.
So what happened? It all crashed?
So the PBN network, essentially, I think it was Google's Hummingbird update, and it just took a ton of the PBNs out of commission. Their rankings tanked, their DA dropped overnight. Stuff like that. But even prior to that, I was considering getting out anyway because of fulfillment. I was just drowning in fulfillment. And it's one of those things where you can be passionate about something until you start to do it every single day for fulfillment and you start drowning in it and perhaps some client expectation weren't managed correctly. It's been 3 days and my site's not the top of Google, this kind of stuff. So yeah, even prior to the PBN getting tanked, I was thinking, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
What happened to your agency after this PBN tanked?
I basically just said to my business partner at the time, I said, look, I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, I do. So I said, okay, you can buy me out. And he bought me out. It was literally that cut and dried. And then I left to try and figure out my next move, which at the time I didn't have a clue what it was going to be. I just knew I didn't want to do that.
So what was your next move?
The next move was that we set up a local business because my history, if you go back far enough, I was a chef. And so we set up a local food production business, things like gourmet sauces and gourmet soups. It was good. But once again, the reason I left chefing was because of the hours, the heat, stress, just to put myself right back into the hours, the heat and the stress, only now with my own business. We realized after about 2 to 3 years, I didn't want to do that either. We exited that business, didn't make a profit on it. We basically exited for what we got in for. It was what it was. And then it was time for me to really reassess, like, what is it I want to do here? So I made a complete career pivot and went into sales full time, sold all sorts of different things, stocks and shares, energy, cell phone contracts, cars, you name it. And then in 2017, I started to get reinvigorated about the online space and was familiar with Russell Brunson, .com secrets, the whole bit. So I'd been fascinated by it for a long time. And then in about 2018, I discovered this online remote closing position where you could essentially be a sales rep remotely for an online coach and make pretty good money figuring out your own calendar and all that kind of stuff. So I started to take a much closer look at it and then got intrigued by that space. I thought, this is easy. Like, you don't have to figure out a massive skill set. You don't have to learn copywriting. You don't have to learn SEO. You don't have to have 1,000 different skills. You literally just need to be pretty good at one skill. And I figured I'm already pretty good at that skill. Like I can sell. In 2019, I exited my job from a luxury car brand who I was selling for at the time and jumped into the online space as a remote closer for another company.
So when you went into, so tell me about this, because I got to know you as my coach and mentor when it came for sales, because I was investing heavily in my sales training at the time. So tell me how this happened or how you got into this. Tell me about your journey of getting into this remote high ticket sales.
I made a plan at the start of 2019 and I thought I need a 3-month financial runway. I need to make sure I've got enough money in the bank so that I can jump from my job and try this. And if everything just shits the bed, I'll just go and get another sales job, right? So it wasn't really a risk for me because there's always sales jobs available. So I did that, made sure that I had enough financial runway to see me through 3 months in case it didn't pan out. And then I left my job. Simple as that. Handed in my notice, left 2 weeks later and dove straight in. Now, in the background, I'd been setting up different opportunities. But at the time, I didn't know how to vet an opportunity. I didn't know whether it was a good opportunity or a bad opportunity. So found myself bouncing from one startup to another, from one bad system to another, from one bad coach to another. Finally landed a role with a really successful company that operated out in New Zealand. And they were just trying to break into the Northern Hemisphere, UK and America and stuff like that.
How'd you do that? Was that midnight oil shifts?
Yeah. Not on calls because they were trying to break the Northern Hemisphere, right? They were advertising into the UK. I learned pretty quick that I sucked at the whole leadership consultative sales. I just wasn't very good at it. So realized I needed to reskill and retool. I suddenly became acutely aware that my previous experience wasn't necessarily going to lend itself perfectly into this style of selling. Got together a chunk of the money that we had set aside in order to see us through and invested into sales coaching, sales training. Fortunately enough, it was a good investment. I know that a lot of people make investments, turned out to be a shit show and you don't get the result or the program isn't what you thought it was going to be. Anyway, whatever. So I invested into that, got pretty good, got let go from the job with the New Zealand-based company because my numbers weren't there. I didn't get good enough fast enough, so they let me go. I spent about 3 weeks probably burning 14 hours a day, just skilling up. My family got so sick of me asking them sales-related questions. Right, you be prospect, I'm going to be closer. And they're like, oh, God, not again. Like, it's at the dinner table, you know, and they're like, really, dude, spare me. So anyway, my long-suffering family were my guinea pigs for several weeks. And then I managed to land a role with a UK-based marketing education company, one of the biggest marketing education companies in the UK. And I landed a role with them and crushed it straight out of the gate. So all of the turmoil, all of the investment, all of the weeks of pain and suffering for me and my family was worth it because I started to crush. Month 1 made 10K, month 2 increased that to 15 and all of the rest of it. So did well and ended up becoming the sales director for that company. So they wanted me to step into, they were like, look, can you help train the others? We would like you to lead the team. I was like, yeah, that'll be awesome. And then to cut a really long story short, ended up going from there to sales sniper as a sales rep and then ended up in the management side of things, helping coach the team and lead the team and all that kind of stuff. From there, went over to Closers.io with Cole as a CSM, like a client success manager, helping his clients scale their sales teams, train their sales teams, help them with their marketing, funnels and ads and all that kind of fun stuff. So that to cut a really long timeline down, that's how it transpired. And then that's how you and I met, obviously.
So you've spent a good, 10 years or something like that within various sales roles?
Yeah. Longer in sales in total, probably nearly 20 years. Yeah.
Crazy. And then within Cole's company, right? You work with many entrepreneurs like myself, but also multi-7, multi-8-figure business owners scaling their offers, contributed directly or indirectly to their success, right? Tell me more about that. And like when somebody approaches you to talk about, I don't know, is it if they're trying to get from 0 to 30K a month or from 30K to 300K a month, or maybe even from 300 to 3 million a month, why are you qualified to talk about that, right?
What was really useful was the company where I was a sales director for, the marketing education company. I learned a ton at that company about marketing and hooks and copywriting and landing pages and indoctrination and warming up an audience and all that kind of good stuff. So I had a kind of good baseline knowledge just from being there. And it's that kind of thing has fascinated me for years since Russell Brunson blew up onto the scene and was talking about .com secrets and all that kind of stuff. It's been a fascination of mine. So marketing has always been a fascination of mine, which is why I went into SEO, is because it's essentially a form of marketing, right? You can rank a website, but if your landing page sucks, then it won't convert, right? So then you're talking about conversion optimization and all of this kind of stuff. So I had a good knowledge of that, but I'd also seen a lot of success as an online sales rep. The two things that drive any digital business is how are you generating leads? How are you converting those leads? That's like the main metrics, right? What does your marketing look like? What do your sales look like? Where are the gaps in those two processes? And then we also dealt with fulfillment as well. Do you know what I mean? Because ultimately, if you scale the front end, the fulfillment, the back end is going to break at some point. So we had a hand in that as well. So it was a full stack. The sales came from personal experience, running teams, being on the front line in the trenches. And the marketing education came from, first and foremost, being with the marketing education company that I was sales director for. But then with Cole, there's tons and tons of learning in terms of that running funnels and direct response and all of that kind of stuff. So I learned a ton more there, but that was how I put it all together.
Tell me about, do you have one particular, and we don't need to drop any names. I know you have a couple of clients in mind when you're talking about going from 30K to 300K. And I know you were part of these situations.
Yep.
Can you tell me about one of them? What are the numbers that you were part of? Tell me a story and how you helped contribute them to where they were later on.
The one that we're both probably thinking about was a person that came to me, super lovely lady, taught people how to start their own functional medicine business. It was pretty niche, but she was helping practitioners and nurses and stuff like that transition out of like a full-time, or in the UK, it's the NHS, but a full-time kind of hospital-based job, and then start their own functional medicine business. I think I'm right in saying that she was doing somewhere between 7 and 10K when she became my client. And at the end of just shy of 11 months was doing $1 million a month. So in less than a year, we went from 7, 8, 9K a month-ish to $1 million a month.
Wow.
Yeah. It was meteoric. It was a lot of work.
Without boasting yourself too much, but what do you think were the key things that contributed? Because I know you were her coach, right? And her mentor, and also for her team. What do you think are the key things that you helped contribute to this business that potentially other businesses would be interested in as well, looking to do this kind of thing, that got them to where they want to be? And let's repeat quickly for the audience, right? That was from, what was it at the beginning?
Somewhere between 7 and 10K.
So got just shy of 10K.
Yep.
To almost $1 million a month.
Over $1 million a month.
Over $1 million a month in less than 1 year. So in less than 12 months, a business went from 10K a month to over $1 million a month. Let's let that sink in. A quick minute of pause and now go.
To begin with,
I think it's impressive. I've scaled multiple businesses. I've sold businesses. I've made many hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I'd never taken a business from 10K to over $1 million a month in less than a year. That's something still to be done, or maybe not. We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
If you want to track it, number one is figuring out the positioning. Who are we attracting? Where is the biggest TAM, the total addressable market? Where is the most opportunity? Let's figure that out. Then let's figure out the offer, and not necessarily what you do as fulfillment, but how you articulate that to the marketplace. So when you're going to run an ad, how do we describe your offer? How do we articulate what you do in a way that is compelling, interesting, gets people excited, all that kind of stuff? We both of those things out, and then we set up all of the marketing campaigns, which at the time was a direct VSL funnel, very simple. Meta ads, landing page, VSL, application, book a call, pretty standard VSL funnel. And then we doubled down real hard on the sales process. And at first I taught it to the owner, to the founder. She got very proficient, got very good at selling people. And then at the point where she was bottlenecked, right? Because now she's dealing with the marketing, she's dealing with the sales, she's doing the fulfillment, she's doing all the things. She needs to remove herself from being on the phone. So that was the point at which we started to install a sales team. I then worked with that sales team, setters and closers, to help skill them up and get them good. And from there, it was a a gradual system of increase the marketing, increase the sales, make sure the back end doesn't break. Increase the marketing, increase the sales, make sure the back end doesn't break. That was literally what we did for the next few months. And we went 10K a month, 30K a month, 80K a month, 100K a month, 250 a month. And gradually it incrementally scaled. Yeah.
Tell me about the complexity within that business. Do you believe this business owner needed a lot of additional tools, additional AI, maybe different funnels, different complexity of funnels to get to this 1 million a month mark?
No,
Or
no, it was all done with one offer. One offer.
No upsells, downsells, low ticket, high ticket, webinars, whatever.
No, we added a back end offer. So once somebody had completed the first 3 or 4 months, however long it was, might even have been 6 months. Once somebody had completed that and got some results, then there was a back end offer to upsell into a mastermind. But other than that, it was one process, one funnel, one ad strategy, one sales process, one offer. And then at the right time, we obviously implemented a back-end offer as well.
I think this is an interesting topic to talk about because I just read through Alex Hormozi's 100 million money models. We got it here, right? Obviously, this is his third book, right? So it's his most advanced play. And before that, you should read the 100 million offers and the 100 million leads, which are predecessors from the money models. But in the money models, right, all he talks about is how you can add more upsells, downsells, how you can make more money out of one transaction, basically, right? It starts off the book with a story where he says, I went to this event and I rented a car and then they sold me insurance and a bigger car and a bigger this and that. And he went there thinking he'd spend $20 a day for the car and ended with $100 a day for the car because of all these things like late bringing the car and whatnot. I feel that this is very damaging advice for many coaches, consultants, course creators, anyone in the online service-based business world right now, because I hear this not the first time that somebody approached me and said, Sebastian, I just read this Hormozi stuff or I've watched your videos, right? Because I've been creating all these shorts, breaking down the concepts of the book. And I feel like I'm doing it all wrong. I should have upsells, downsells. I should have more offers. And I think that's this point by you proves this, right? There's businesses out there, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads, maybe on one platform, Facebook, maybe. They're not doing ads on Twitter, on TikTok or whatever, just Meta, Facebook and Instagram, and making $1 million a month with one offer and a backend, right? A continuation of that offer,
Yep.
if you so will. I think my question is at this point, if you're a coach, course creator, consultant, and you're making anywhere from 10K a month to 100K a month, how do you resist all this information, all this shiny stuff, right? That you should be having more offers, more upsells, downsells, as opposed to just focusing on what you do best, your one core offer, your one core advertising method.
Dude, if you find a way to resist the shiny stuff, let me know. I'm like a fucking magpie, but I've become a lot better at resisting the shiny stuff. Here's the reality is most people can make a super good income, like crazy good income, so long as they've got their market correct. And I think the predisposition for most coaches is, okay, now I'm doing whatever, 30K a month, 40K a month, 50K a month. Well, now in order to scale, I need to add something else. Like I need another offer. I need a different offer. Maybe I need a back-end offer. Maybe I need a lower ticket offer to get more people in the front and get them to know and trust me and all this kind of stuff. And the reality is that if you're doing 30K a month with your funnel the way it is, you can probably do 100K a month. You can probably do 500K a month with the same offer, the same funnel, the same everything, just by scaling marketing and sales. But there's a propensity by coaches who are degenerates for the most part. Do you know what I mean? We're all just, because that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You're just like, I'll try anything. I'll try everything. And there comes a point in time where you need to kind of shed that old skin a little bit and move more into, as Russell Brunson would call it, mastering the mundane. Is just keep doing the same thing, but do more of it, you know, in order to scale. But I think in terms of shedding that old skin, that old habit of, I need something else, I need a new thing, I need an upsell, downsell, cross-sell, in-sell, outsell, it's a hard lesson to learn.
You've made a good example of yourself, no? Tell our audience about what happened this weekend. You wanted to buy another offer.
Yes.
And instead you decided to come here onto this podcast and do more of the mundane, which you're already doing, right?
Correct. Yeah, do more of what is already working. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, you had to talk me off the ledge, though, you know, some cash burning a hole in my pocket. Coach Seb Harder, tell me where everything started for you. Take us right back. You've been successful, right? You've run multiple businesses, you've scaled multiple businesses, you've sold multiple businesses, you run a very successful architecture marketing agency. So yeah, give us like the 10,000 foot view of how it started and how you got here.
There was a time, I think, end of high school, before uni, I was doing this computer school. It was in Switzerland. And here we have this thing in between high school and university that is like in the middle. It's something where you get practical as well. So university is always very theoretical, right? And in this blend, you do half of it is theoretical and the other half is practical. So you'd actually take out your computers. And at the time that was 10, 15 years ago. So this was still learning everything about these different LANs and IP subnets and whatever, all this computer stuff, right? How computers are connected. And I guess the main role for this was to become an IT manager or managing the software and the different stuff for companies. And during this tenure of the school, I don't know why, but I got really interested in computers, in online business, what you could do. It was really fascinating for me already at the time to just see what's possible in a world that was completely still in the dark for so many people and businesses. I remember us sitting all together in the classroom and we were learning about how data is transmitted through when you pull from the internet and, when you have these different things, taking in data and giving it away. So how does a server work? How does a client work? How do you build a website? And how does this information go from one place to another? Already there at the time, I was like, well, if this information is going back and forth, then there must be a way to intercept it. And at the time, there was like these tools that I then found online. They were called like Cain and Abel, which basically they built a fake router. You just could spoof a router and intercept all the traffic. So I built this fake router and I knew all of the passwords and all of the websites that the entire classroom, including my teachers, were using. And I used this as a public case study, right? I presented it to them. So I was this IT security guy already at the time. Being able to do this kind of stuff brought me into the entrepreneur world really quickly. I was like, if I can do this kind of stuff, why should I go work for a boring company? Like, let me go build my own shit. I moved out when I was 18 from my parents' place and moved into a bigger city at the time, also in Switzerland, moved to Zurich. And there it was like, okay, let me go do stuff. So I worked all these odd jobs for promotion companies, from flyers to chips bags to whatever, quickly leveled up the ranks as well. So I was like coordinating the whole promotions at all these festivals, events, and open air kind of things. And at the time, there was a phone company, Swisscom, the biggest company in Switzerland, doing cell phone service. And it was right the time where like cell phones became a thing of more importance. Smartphones started to appear. People needed a cell phone, especially at these festivals where people would spend 3 days, 4 days in tents. This was a time when power banks were not really a thing. Phones were just starting to become popular and people just started to use the importance of these phones. So at the same time, this big company, they had a big truck at these festivals for marketing reasons, like a marketing promotion kind of thing where they would charge your phone. At the time, they had just announced that they're going to discontinue this marketing effort. They were like, we're stopping this kind of service at all of the festivals and open airs. And so I was like, bingo, but if they're not doing it, somebody has to do it, right? So let me go buy a container and start charging phones at festivals. Obviously, just resourceful as I was at the time, started calling up people of containers, started figuring out where I can get like cables and build the shit and whatever. Really quickly realized that it's not as easy as it seems. You quickly fall on your face. You're this young kid, no money or not a lot of money, all these big companies with relationships and things that you don't know, a lot of things going on in the background. You don't have a big network whatsoever. I quickly realized, okay, this is not working as I want it to do. So I looked for people to help me and I started reaching out to all these people that build businesses and do stuff. And I found my first business partner at the time. He was a little bit older. He was around 10 years older. He had established a brand as investing as an angel investor and helping other businesses grow. So he had a network, he had some money, and he was like, I like your idea. Let's do it. But I want to change some things. So he came into my business as a business partner. We called it Vaultbox, which then became my first company where I started charging phones, not just at festivals or open airs, but like across the country within hotel lobbies, bars, restaurants, whatever. And all of these charging stations, they had a display on them so we could advertise. So we built like a little advertising network, which weirdly then also sparked my interest for where the money is, which is not in charging phones, which was done for free or maybe charge them $1, but where companies paid a lot of money to be present on this little screen in some kind of hotel lobby. That one thing led to another. I started working for a couple of agencies. Doing my first agency there was an affiliate marketing agency where I was an account manager, and I was doing the affiliate management for bigger firms, doing the affiliate marketing for them. That means bigger firms like Walmart and stuff like that, right? They all have an agency managing all their banners and affiliate links. That then took me in a whole nother world where I started at the time building up these websites, doing affiliate links. Well, they can do it. Why can't I do it? So I just built these websites. They started getting some traffic, and I started making money through affiliate links. And I had a network of a couple of websites, and they were doing fine. But like you said, right, there was the Google updates and the things, and it was a whole drag to manage as well. So I was flipping some websites, sold some of them. Others grew a little bit. Others tanked and shut off. At the time, it was paying me better than my job at the agency that I had there. So I could leave. I felt like the king of the world, making good money, better than any 9-to-5 would pay at the time, and was asking myself, what's next? So I got into e-com as well. I took my knowledge that I had from the affiliate networks and from how websites work, how advertising works. And I was like, okay, why don't we just sell stuff? At the time, this was, 2015, 16, something like that. Amazon FBA was a big thing. Wasn't that known. This was just starting to ramp up at the time. There were some players making millions of dollars. It was really easy to scout which products were doing well, which ones were not, where there was a lot of competition, where there was not. So you could basically just go in and be like, okay, these 10 products, you could do your product research, choose products that were good to go with and didn't have a lot of competition, but a lot of potential. At the time, this was pillows, memory foam pillows and bedding wear. Got in, called up China, ordered thousands of pillows.
Tricky combo.
Big containers, lots of stuff. We sold them mainly on Amazon, but then quickly expanded, went to Shopify, built a bunch of shops. That was working really well. We did tons of money at the time. And I was like, okay, we got to scale this. Even in e-com, a couple $100,000 a month, it's not a lot because you have all the ad spend and product and margins. And even if you're making 40, 50%, it's still a lot of risk involved because you have all the products.
It's a mass scale model, right? You need to be doing millions in order to make any profit.
Yeah. Yes. So I thought it was like absolutely crazy. And that's, I guess, what also led to that being a little bit tricky, because I felt, okay, now I'm doing so well. We're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of these pillows, and we added more products. And I think this lesson I want to pass on to everyone listening to this right now as well is like when I was young and I was making a shit ton of money, and I felt like, okay, now let's add more products. So we started adding this and that, and we didn't research all of them properly. We didn't really explore the same amount of opportunity that we had for like sheets and all the accessory products that we wanted to add onto it. Then each product was a whole thing in itself. You got to create labels, packaging, all the negotiations with the supplier. You got to order them. It takes a couple of weeks, sometimes months for the product to get there and be sold. And you deviate from your focus, right? So the focus was the pillows. We started adding more products. We ordered a shit ton more of pillows. And you got to imagine at the time, even though I was a young kid making a shit ton of money with these products, I had no degree in supply chain management, international logistics, international tax law. Like I was selling in the UK. I was like, okay, let's go to the US. Then we figured, okay, let's sell in Germany, France, whatever. And so suddenly I have lawsuits, I have lawyers, I have 10 different countries with 10 different tax laws, 10 different product laws. That's when you realize that like complexity kills. Complexity kills your business, and it makes it so much more difficult. I could have made millions a month just selling these stupid pillows in the UK. And instead I was deviated. Like I thought I needed to go to the US because of bigger market, although I haven't even scratched the surface in the UK. I guess this going down also, like the company did well. We sold it. We made money off the sale, but it could have been way more crazy at the time. I think if we wouldn't have tried to go into every country, sell pillows everywhere, including like also sticking to Amazon, right? We were selling on Amazon. That worked well. Why did we have to go to Shopify and try all these other platforms? What? Because we thought we could scale faster and do it bigger. So Point being, sometimes complexity, or not sometimes, I guess many times complexity kills and makes your business harder, more distracted, focus in all ways.
Complexity kills, and I 100% believe that as well. And for me, if a client ever asks, like, what are the other things I should be doing? 9 times out of 10, in order for them to scale, it's not what other things you should be doing, it's how many things you should actually stop doing. What are the things that are currently consuming your bandwidth that are not moving the needle?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What are the things you can get off your plate, delegate to somebody else, or just stop doing completely because it's in no way, shape, or form driving revenue, helping with fulfillment, increasing traffic, increasing conversion? If it's not one of those things, you probably shouldn't be focused on it.
You know what I think the biggest lever for this is? Time tracking in general, tracking everything. It's like when I sit down, I've been doing this religiously the past couple of days. When I sit down and you're probably familiar with a term called time boxing. And when you sit down and you say, okay, now I got up, now I have a half an hour to, I don't know, read the news, drink a coffee, whatever. And then you look at the clock and you say, okay, I got up 6 a.m. and 6:30 is my next thing, which could be your workout, right? Now, if you time box, you look at the clock, it's precisely how many times is it like 6:28, and then you're like, oh, I got to brush my teeth yet, and I don't know, this, that, and your workout suddenly starts at 6:40 or 6:50, and then you do your workout, and then this other thing gets in between, and you were like, I wanted to, my knee started hurting during my workout, so I wanted to research this physiotherapy thing, and you go onto Google, and who knows, 40 minutes later, you've maybe found a physiotherapist, maybe not, you're calling them or not. You realize how much time evaporates for all this stupid shit in between that you did not calculate, that was not part of your business growth plan. It was not part of your marketing growth plan. It was just added to your day. And unfortunately, we only have 24 hours a day, which we sleep 6, 7, or 8 hours a day. And then you want to spend some time with your family and this and that. And if you don't precisely watch out where that time goes, a lot of it will slip through the cracks.
Yep. Like a leaky bucket.
Leaky bucket. Same happens for your leads, your sales. If you're not tracking it, if you're not watching it, if you're not precisely monitoring where things drop off, where things are not working, that goes really fast.
But dude, it blows my mind how many people don't track their metrics. Like how many conversations I've had with a coach or a business and I've said, give me the breakdown of these numbers. How much did you spend on ads? How many leads did you generate? Of the leads, how many turned into a book call? Of the book calls, how many showed up? Of the ones that showed, how many closed? How much revenue did you collect? How much revenue did you produce? What is the overall business revenue compared to last month? And they just look at you and go, oh shit, dude, I don't know. And you're like, bro, what do you mean you don't know? How the hell can you make a shift in any one direction if you're not tracking that stuff because you don't know what to change? You have to track.
It's hard. You'll get into so many situations where you feel like I missed it, and it's hard. Every company I speak to, where I speak to the sales managers, the reps, the whatever, Sebastian, I just don't have time to update my CRM or whatever. Yes, you do. You have to. It's going to be in the reports. It's critical. Many business owners don't realize this. In one of our companies, we work together with an architect and home builder, right? Selling homes anywhere from 200K to 2-3 million. Sometimes it's like one of your sales reps is maybe to the brink in, work, following up with leads, going through consultations, yada, yada, yada. You think, I don't know, $5,000 a month is a lot for a sales ops dude or gal. No. $5,000 a month is not a lot if you sell another 200K home through the help of a $5,000 a month sales ops, or maybe even adding another sales reps to the team, making anywhere from $5 to $10K a month. That's also not a lot. Sell one more $2 million home. You can hire 5 of them.
It's like, if you're struggling to track, why don't you just hire a VA and get that VA, which you pay, I don't know, whatever it is, like $8 an hour, very, very affordable, get them to track it. And then they just deliver you the report. Like figure out what your time is worth on an hourly basis. And I bet it's a hell of a lot more than $8. And if that's the case, and Hormozi talks about this, if you make more than $20 an hour, pay somebody to clean your home because you can be far more effective in those 2 or 3 hours that you would spend cleaning your home. You could be far more effective in your business than you doing the home cleaning. Same in your business, right? If it's $8 an hour and your time is worth more than $8 an hour, outsource that to a VA, get the VA to do your tracking and get them to send you the reports on a daily basis. Why wouldn't you do that?
Even the next one.